Hi again. Well, we've talked about product costs and we've talked about period cost, and we even defined product cost a little bit more to either prime cost or conversion cost. But a really important element from a cost perspective is for a manager or a decision maker to understand how costs are going to react to changes in both maybe the level of activity or the volume of product that's produced or the number of hours that a machine is operating. The question is, what costs will change? How will costs respond to differences in volume? This is a really important thing to understand, not only for planning and budgeting, but also decision making. So we're going to be talking about two costs initially. One cost is called a variable cost, and the second is called a fixed cost. A variable cost, let's be clear on a definition. Direct your attention to this slide. I don't particularly like the illustration of the example, but I like the slide. Variable cost is any cost that increases and decreases proportionally with volume or activity change. So for example, let's just assume for the moment, this illustration here is minutes talked on the x-axis, and on the y-axis it's total long distance telephone bill. It just simply means the more long distance calls you make at the particular rate per minute, let's just say it's $1 a minute, for every minute you talk, you're going to incur $1 of variable costs. If you talk 2 minutes, you're going to have $2, 3 minutes, $3, etc. So this particular graph or chart represents the concept that a variable cost in total will increase proportionally or decrease proportionally with volume. So let's superimpose on top of this minutes talk and long term with the cost of a radio that goes inside of a car. If you build one car, you incur one cost of a radio. If the radio costs $500, you've added $500 of radio cost. If you build two cars, you're going to incur $1,000 of radio costs, etc. I'm a guy who, I own a restaurant, and my veal scallopini costs are going to go up by a function of the number of people who buy veal scallopini. So veal scallopini with a little marsala sauce, a little salt and pepper, a little oregano, all of those costs are going to go up by the more people buy veal scallopini. If they don't buy veal scallopini, my veal scallopini costs are going to be lower. So you can apply that to just about any manufacturing environment. So that is the first concept about variable costs. Now I will say, as I mentioned in the previous slide, now I'll show you on this particular slide, this example is 10 minutes instead of the $1 that I used. The cost per long distance minute is 10 minutes. Well, that doesn't change. It's 10 minutes. Now, I recognize you might negotiate a rate with your carrier, and you might say, well, if you talk a certain amount of time, it's going to go from 10 cents to 9, or it's going to start at 9 and move to 10, and if you go over a certain amount, it's going to go to 12. But for the purposes of understanding this, I know what my veal scallopini cost is, so the more of it I make, the total cost goes up, but my cost of veal scallopini is the same. So the variable cost per unit is the same. The total variable cost increases proportionally or decreases proportionally with volume. Those are the concluding statements on variable cost. Our next target will be fixed cost.